Welcome to The Bottom Line. I'm Pastor Rick Utze from Maranatha Community Fellowship in Plain City, Ohio. You know, the other night I was sitting on my chair, kind of reading, half watching TV that was on, and there really wasn't anything on. I just had the TV on, and there was this TV show that was on there about unusual places. And I looked up, and there was this temple where all these rats were running around, and people were worshiping the rats. And so it kind of caught my attention when I saw that, and it was in India, and these people were walking around and bowing down the rats and feeding them, and there was this white rat that if they could see the white rat, they were especially blessed. And as I'm looking at that, you know, in our culture today, rats, like we have an aversion to rats, a strong dislike at best for rats, right? And so when we look at that, we see that they're obviously worshiping an idol that really doesn't make any sense to us, but they believe it was the incarnation of a goddess that comes down in these rats. And as I was thinking about that, I'm like, sometimes we don't even recognize our own idols, right? We have an aversion to that, but we don't have as strong an aversion to our own idols, because in Psalms, I think it's 4, it says, how long will you love delusions and seek false gods? Like, how long are we going to seek the false gods of this earth, the idols that we place in our hearts, even good things like relationships with others that we put ahead of God, that we think are going to bring us satisfaction. And yes, we are to be reconciled and have good relationships, but God is the one that brings ultimate satisfaction, and the wealth and the pleasures and all the abuses of those things that we see on the news in our world today. Like, we even run after those things without even thinking, right? And not realizing what they're doing to us in our relationship with God. So God doesn't like any of that, right? We need to worship Him and Him alone. And not only do we need to worship Him, but in Psalms, or in Isaiah 49, it says, Zion says. Now Zion refers really to Jerusalem, the people of God, and they were in captivity and exile, and they're wondering where God is. And it says, Zion says, the Lord has abandoned me, the Lord has forgotten me. Can a woman forget her nursing child, or lack compassion for the child of her womb? Even if these forget, yet I will not forget you. This is God saying, I am not going to forget you, Zion. You're there because you worshiped other idols. You're there because you no longer worshiped me. You're there because you thought you could have me and other things. You can't. Like, He is number one, and everything else He blesses us with, we use to glorify Him and use for His kingdom. And then He goes on to say, look, I have inscribed you on the palms of my hands. Your walls are continually before me. God said, I haven't forgotten you. I've got a plan for you. I've inscribed you on the palm of my hands. I won't forget you. And you know, sometimes we write things on our hands not to forget if we don't have a piece of paper handy or we're afraid we'll lose it. And that has to do with cutting. It's more like a tattoo, like it's there, you know. And God's like, Zion, I'm not going to forget you. Jerusalem, I'm not going to forget you. The people, God's people, I'm not going to forget you. Church, I'm not going to forget you. There's a new Jerusalem coming out of heaven as a bride adorned, right, for Jesus Christ, our bridegroom. And it's like, God says, I'm not going to forget you. I've got you right there. As a matter of fact, we don't worship a goddess who's incarnated into rats. We worship a God who was incarnated into the God-man, the Son of God, the Son of Man, right? That's who we worship. And that's the one who says, I will inscribe you on my hands. He inscribed, he got nail prints right there, right? As proof He'll never forget us. Like, they're there. After His resurrection, they were there. Like, God's not going to forget your name. You may never, ever have somebody exalt your name so that a bunch of other people on this earth hear it and adore you. But the one that we adore, the God of heavens, the Creator, the transcendent one, has your name written on His hand. And there is no better one to not forget you and to call you to dwell with Him forever and ever. So let's remember, let's have an aversion to the gods of this earth, and let's worship Jesus Christ, who's got our name, who's got us imprinted on His hands. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on The Bottom Line.